that I worked for this president.
Do you believe that Joe Biden became a less adept debater from the time that you began knowing him to 2025?
So I will just use his own words. He said himself he wasn't as good debater as he used to be, or he wasn't speaking as well as he used to. That's something that he said. He actually spoke to.
Did you ever have conversations with President Biden about why he wasn't as good of a speaker as he used to be?
I never had a direct conversation with the president about that.
Did you have a conversation with somebody else about that?
I never had a conversation with anybody about that.
You mentioned that you didn't recall, at least, noticing that Joe Biden had a stutter when you first met him. But did you notice it at some point during your time in the Biden administration?
I can't remember specific times, but obviously this is something that he was free-willing and talked about extensively, and I can't pinpoint a moment where I experienced that or could remember. But this is somebody who talked about it, connected with other folks who had stutters, and again, if you have a stutter, doesn't mean that you can't perform at a high level.
Certainly, and the reason I ask it all is simply because that the fact that he had a stutter was brought up as perhaps a reason for some of his lack of performance in the debate, for example, and other moments. Do you agree with that? Do you think that played a role?
Look, I can't hypothesize or opine what it's like to have a stutter, and what that's not something that I can speak to. I know what you're speaking of. What I know is that he had to work very hard to deal with his stutter, even today, from the time he was young, even today, something that he talked about extensively. Again, just because you have a stutter doesn't mean you can't operate at a high level and be very functioning, and that does not affect your competency.
Certainly, and I agree with you. I only mean that it seemed to be cited as proof that he was not in cognitive decline in any way, that any verbal stumble was simply the result of the stutter.
Again, what I can speak to is my observation, and this is somebody that was more than competent to do his job. I don't think a stutter, if he had it or not, if you have a stutter, doesn't mean that you can't perform at a high level. But my experience, my observation, again, and I said this at the podium, and I will continue to say it today in front of all of you, which is this is someone who was very active and engaging with me when I had conversations with him.
Do you think that you mentioned that the press was very concerned or brought up frequently President Biden's health or these related issues of his cognitive abilities or fitness to serve? Do you think the American people were also concerned about that?
I can't speak for the whole entire American people. It's not something I can speak to.
Did you ever have outreach from friends or people you knew that were concerned that President Biden was struggling with his health or cognitive abilities?
Not that I recall, not specific conversations.
Did you ever have a conversation with anyone in the White House?
In the White House?
Where you or they were concerned about President Biden's health or cognitive abilities?
I've never spoken to anybody in the White House about that.
To be clear, you've spoken to people in the White House about that regarding press inquiries, though.
Exactly, but the question was, right, if I heard the question, if people in the White House were concerned, like personally concerned. I did not talk to anybody about that in the White House, about personal concern.
Sure, and you would, I'm not a press person. I don't really know how your job works, but it's my understanding.
You should try it. It's fun.
That if you were receiving outreach from the press about the president's health or ability to serve, you would go to either the comms team, the press team.
So it's not necessarily that I would go. Everybody was watching the news just as I was, right? So people were aware with what was happening in the news. But as the press secretary, when I'm in these meetings, these check-in meetings, I would bring up, hey, this is what I'm going to get in the briefing room. This is, what the incoming that we're having that's coming in from the White House press corps.
Sure. And over the course of your 2 years as press secretary, it's your testimony here today that you never just asked somebody, whether it was one of the senior advisors or the vice president, hey, Steve Ricchetti, is the president okay?
I never had to ask that question because I saw the president on a daily basis, and I never ever thought if I never had that question.
Wait, but to be clear, you're not a doctor, correct?
I'm not a doctor, but you're also asking me to make a statement, right, about his health. So, it goes both ways here. I'm just telling you my observation, right? My observation was this was somebody who was competent. And these are conversations that I'm having, right? These are direct conversations that I'm having with the President of the United States, Joe Biden at the time. And it was always direct. It was always very alert. And, it was a healthy back and forth. So because I had that daily access to him and talk to him, there would be no reason for me to go to a senior advisor to ask the question that you just asked me.
And just to be specific, after the 2024 debate, you never thought maybe I should actually ask a few other people if the president's doing okay.
He said he had a bad night. The president said he had a bad night.
And you never thought to ask why?
Again, this is somebody that I had regular engagement with, and I never had a concern about anything that dealt with if the president could do his job or not. I saw a president that was more than capable to do his job.
So I understand you had frequent interaction with President Biden, but for those in the White House that didn't, were you aware of any of them coming to you or to anyone else?
They did not come to me.
Are you aware of anybody raising concerns about President Biden's health with another senior advisor?
No, I was not.
So as far as you know, the White House, nobody in the White House had concerns about the president's ability to do his job.
I'm one person out of hundreds of people that work for the President of the United States. I could only speak for myself and my observation and my engagement with people. That's all that I'm speaking to today.
But you were the spokesperson for the White House, so I would think that you might have an ear for what people in the White House were doing or saying. And did nobody ever come to you with any concern and say, Ms. Jean-Pierre, is the president okay?
No one came to me and said those exact words. That's not a conversation that I had with anyone. What I can say is that my observation, again, I'm one person, and my job was to share information that in a transparent way that reporters and the American people needed to know. I did not have those very direct, you're talking about very direct conversations with people, and I didn't have them.
Do you think you shared information, that the White House shared information directly and clearly regarding the president's health or ability to do the job?
Yes.
We're getting close to the end of our hour, but just quickly, Ian Sams testified that, and I don't want to misrepresent the exact number of times, but that he did not interact with President Biden very often in person. And he was certainly asked to make statements, particularly in the context of the Robert Hur report, pushing back against the concerns about President Biden's, I think in that case, primarily memory. Did Ian Sams come to you to discuss how to respond to those concerns?
Come to me to help him how to respond to those concerns?
Are you aware of how Ian Sams got his direction for how to respond to these concerns since he did not interact with President Biden very often?
Ian Sams didn't work for me. He didn't report to me.
Right.
So I would not have been involved in how he engaged or interacted with the press in his job because he wasn't under my tutelage, if you will. He didn't work for me. I wasn't his direct report.
So you have no knowledge of how his response to questions in the context of the Her report would have been made or considered?
That was not my, that would not be my role with how Ian would go and speak to the press about. I just wasn't involved in that.
Okay.
Yes,
Back-
yes, Chair.
I've never really understood why Ian Sams was brought on. He said he didn't interact with the president. You say you didn't interact with him. Who was telling Ian Sams what to do and what
Yeah.
to say when he would go out there? It seemed like on a daily basis.
So just to correct, I interacted with Ian.
Okay. You didn't give, he didn't give
Yeah,
orders.
I didn't want
Okay.
that to be on the record. I interacted with Ian because he did have a portfolio, and so we definitely interacted on his portfolio. I did not give him direction on how to do his job because he didn't report to me. My understanding, because I was not involved in his hiring,
Mhm.
I wasn't part of that. My understanding is that he reported to the White House counsel because that's where he was based,
Mhm.
and also Anita Dunn, who was a senior advisor at the time. That's my understanding.
It seems like you seem like you did a very good job for President Biden.
Oh,
And I don't
thank you.
understand why I don't understand why they would bring Ian Sams on. And
Yeah, I can't
It
speak
is.
to it. I honestly
you
can't
think he
speak to it.
reported to the council, but are you sure?
I mean,
Like somebody had to tell him what to say when he was up there.
yeah,
He
that's
said
where.
a lot about me, which doesn't have anything to do with this, but a lot about the president's
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
And then to come to find out, he never talked to the president.
Well, he
After.
was, I believe his title was spokesperson that was in the White House counsel, if
Okay.
I'm remembering correctly, and I'm sure your team will correct me. That's where he was based, and that's where he kind of lived in doing his job. I can't speak beyond that, but I understand your question. I don't